Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this new episode. Today, I want to talk about a challenge that is actually your boss. And we might have a lot of really great bosses out there. And I know I've been very lucky in my career to have some amazing men and women mentor me and help me grow. But that isn't always the case. And I currently have two clients who are really struggling. They've started a new job and they are struggling with their boss. And you've probably heard it before that if somebody leaves a job, it's often not because of the job. In the majority of the cases, or the majority of the time, it's because of their boss. People leave a boss. However, if you have just stepped into a new job or you've changed companies, and often the problem isn't your team, the scope, the workload, it can be your boss. And so it can feel so frustrating because the one person who is actually supposed to be your biggest ally and cheerleader and who is supposed to be there to help you succeed is either blocking you or micromanaging you and just simply making your life harder than it needs to be. But the hard truth is that your boss isn't going to change. People rarely change. So the real question becomes, what do you do? How do you keep your authority, your energy, your motivation, your reputation when the person above you is the challenge? That's what I want to unpack today. So I want to start off, first of all, saying that not all difficult bosses look the same. First one is the micromanager. So we've all heard of micromanaging. A micromanager is hovering over you, double checking the details that actually don't need to be checked, second guessing or backtracking on decisions that you've already made. So instead of empowering you to lead, they make you feel like you're an assistant or somebody extremely junior. And then frustration starts to build because you know you're capable, but constant oversight undermines your authority. And that can leave you drained and resentful. The second type of boss that many people come across is somebody who is simply absent or invisible. And the absent boss is never around when you need them. Getting time on their calendar feels impossible. And when you do, they're distracted or they're vague, and you end up guessing at what matters most, which wastes time and wastes energy because you're trying to read the lines. And the danger here is that you are left without clear direction and a risk of moving in a specific direction that doesn't align with their priorities, but priorities that they haven't shared. That is a very big issue if you are starting a new job. The third type of challenging boss is somebody who is indecisive. And I'm an action taker. I am constantly taking actions, making decisions, and moving forward. And there is nothing worse for me than to function in a company where there's so much inertia. And that's what an indecisive boss does. They stall momentum. You bring them options, you outline recommendations, and instead of moving forward, they sit on it, they ask you for more data, and just weeks can go by without any clear feedback or decision, and everything is in limbo. Something like that not only kills progress, but can damage your credibility, either with the team or with stakeholders. So could be that you have an indecisive boss. There's also the political player. And I personally think, and I've talked about it in this podcast in past episodes, you need to play the game some of the time. I mean, politics is part of the job. But if your boss is only focused on politics, then there is a problem. Because if they are not focused on outcomes, but they're only focused on things like how things look or who gets credit or what makes them look good, then that's an issue. And they might change their opinion based on who's in the room, which means a lot of times you have to scramble to adapt. And that's also, a lot of times you're walking on eggshells around them. That's a big issue. So if we look at all of this, it's the impact of having a boss with these kinds of personality traits or behaviors is frustrating. There's a lot of wasted energy. And for you, there's the risk that you're just going to settle into either waiting for him or her to give you feedback. You're going to shrink down. You're going to wait. So there's a risk. So my key message here, and I'm going to tell you and give you some strategies to deal with a difficult boss. But the underlying message here is that your success doesn't depend on fixing your boss. Your boss is not going to change, most likely. What is in your control in the situation? It's how you choose to respond to the situation. That is what's in your power. So if you are constantly putting the fact that you can advance because of your boss, you don't have direction, you don't know where to go, then that is on you. It is your responsibility to function, even if you have a difficult boss. Now, I'm not talking about harassment. Harassment is a different issue. Of course, that is completely wrong. It's illegal. I don't even want to go there on this podcast today. Harassment needs to be dealt with separately. But just having somebody who's difficult to work with, there are solutions. And I coach a lot of people on this. So, one, as a reminder, it isn't your job or your role to make your boss happy. It is your responsibility to deliver results, to protect your energy, and do your job in a way that builds long-term trust with your team, with other stakeholders, and with the business in general. So that means fundamentally, you need to shift from reacting to what your boss does, says, doesn't do, doesn't say, to positioning yourself with intention. You can't control their behavior, but you can control your choices, your boundaries, and your influence. That is the key point. So I want to talk you through 6 strategies that are going to help you. And these are very, very practical that you can use immediately. And it's probably usually a combination of all 6, but I'm going to give you some ideas. So the first one is to clarify expectations. Don't wait for your boss to define everything. Take the lead, propose a solution, bring forward a proposal, talk about your priorities, and ask for confirmation. You're showing initiative, and it's helping reduce ambiguity. When you do this consistently, you're signaling also that you can operate at a strategic level. I've done several podcast episodes on when things are messy. Do not wait for step-by-step instructions. I currently have a client she sees her boss very infrequently, and so gets very little direction. But by constantly proposing and asking for feedback rather than waiting for direction, it has sped up her integration and her credibility. Second strategy is to protect your energy. So not every single battle is worth fighting. You need to decide in advance what is worth pushing back on and what you can let slide. So you don't want to be in a constant conflictual relationship. You want to be focused on where you can bring impact. So where can you make a decision? Where can you set a boundary that will protect you and move the business forward? So in short, don't get sucked in to every minor drama or issue that comes up. My third strategy is to find allies. If your boss isn't a reliable sponsor for you, then you need to build your influence elsewhere. You need to be building relationships across the organization. Because if your boss is really that bad, believe me, the company knows what's going on. And maybe they just haven't made the decision yet either to move him or her, to something that is more appropriate. Maybe they're thinking of letting him go. Maybe there's a reorganization coming up. You don't know that. So you do not have all of the information. So what you can control is to build your relationships. Find those allies, because those allies can advocate for you when you're not in the room. They're going to provide perspective. Maybe they'll buffer the impact of a difficult boss. So just simply diversify where your support comes from, and that will protect you also from being isolated and strengthen your leadership network. The fourth strategy is to communicate with discipline. And what I mean by this is if your boss is scattered or political, then often short, fact-based updates work best. And to communicate the same messages over and over. So just straight to the point, because it also, I found, it reduces kind of the opportunity to get sucked in more, or what I mean by that is also it reduces opportunities for them to meddle in your business. So when you are being very disciplined in your communication, it means you're being selective about what you share and intentional about framing it. Okay, so stay focused on the outcomes and avoid the drama. So it also, of course, sends a signal: steady, reliable, even if your boss is unpredictable. The fifth strategy is to shift the power dynamic. So you can also grow your expertise and assert your authority, even if your boss is difficult. Just be consistent, positioning yourself as the person who can be trusted, who is reliable, who is consistently there. That doesn't require confrontation. And it's just simply showing up, doing your job, again, not getting sucked into the drama, and taking that initiative to do your job well. And I guarantee you that over time, that is going to shift perception of what's going on around you. People, believe me, that people know what is going on. They know who is doing the work, who is not pulling their weight. And so if you have a difficult boss, believe me, many people know. And my last strategy, but this is more of a mindset shift, is I want you to see this as an opportunity. Honestly, I've had difficult bosses, and I just kept telling myself, well, one day they're not going to be there, and I actually want their job. So it's an amazing training ground for you for your leadership. It pushes you to practice patience, sharpen your influence skills, build your network, be resilient. And so by having somebody who's extremely challenging, that's actually going to push you. And you're going to learn faster. You're going to build all kinds of skills that you never knew that you would need. And so it's a way also to turn frustration into an opportunity to develop your executive presence, how you show up, because I don't want you, and this is one of the clients that I'm working with that she's getting sucked into why she can't do her job because of her boss, why it's difficult. And I get it. It's very easy to feel frustrated, but you can also choose differently and see that, wow, this is a great learning experience. And I guarantee you that we've been working on that now for a couple months, and she's going into that situation now with so much more calmness, not getting sucked into the drama. She's built a network outside of her department, so it is 100% possible, but you need to make a decision to do that. So these strategies that I just went through, it's not about changing your boss. It's about reinforcing who you are, how you want to show up, and what you want to do. So here's the question for you this week. What's one adjustment that you can make this week in how you manage up? Something that gives you more control, that makes you feel better, Just one small adjustment. Maybe it's rewriting how you prepare updates. Maybe it's deciding which battles to fight. Maybe it's looking for a new ally. I encourage you to make one decision, because that one decision can completely change the dynamic. So in closing, having a difficult boss is part of life. That's just the way it goes. But what defines your leadership, and here is where all of your power sits, it's you get to decide how you handle it and how you want to show up. So if you are navigating in your role and there's some tricky dynamics with your boss, this is exactly the kind of situation I can help you with. Reach out, because it's not about surviving and fighting through and pushing through. It's about stepping into your authority, even when those conditions are not perfect. I want you to have a great week, everyone. Go be brilliant, and we'll talk soon. Take care.